Hi, and welcome to Widow Talk, real conversations about the stuff people just don't talk about. Today we're chatting to Joanna Boyd. Joanna lost her husband Tony in September 2017 when he had a heart attack suddenly while on a family holiday to Bali. After a successful career in real estate, Joanna now works as a buyer's advocate and is going to share with us her personal experience about relocating her family and moving house after her husband's death. Joanna, thank you so much for chatting with us today.
Thank you so much.
Nice to see you. So we'll get straight into it. Can you tell us a little bit about your life with Tony and how you met?
Sure. So Tony and I were together for 23 years. So I was 19. We both worked at the Brisbane Hilton Hotel. And I guess we just sort of connected and grew and developed. And next thing, we've got 3 children, successful careers, houses, mortgages, that sort of thing. So, yeah, we were a very tight couple. We travelled a lot together. My husband was also in property. So we sort of travelled around, with different careers through, Australia, New Zealand predominantly, Gold Coast, etc. So that was pretty much our life. And we always wanted the best for the family and best for the children. So we just kept working hard. And that was sort of, I guess, our humble beginnings.
Yeah, great. It sounds like a beautiful life. As I mentioned, Tony was taken very suddenly in horrible circumstances while you were overseas, leaving you with the nightmare of navigating through a lot of red tape while caring for your children in another country. What were those first few weeks like for you?
Oh, it was just horrific. And I look back now and I just am so amazed at how the human body can actually sustain such grief, such challenges, loss. Tony's death was quite graphical in the sense that my children witnessed absolutely everything. And being in a third world country, which is heavily relied on tourism, they were put it this way, they were not very forthright in coming forward. So everything that I had to do, I had to orchestrate. So, it was obviously having to deal with funeral directors. I had the police station through Kuta police station. I was there 3 or 4 times, just trying to navigate through red tape. And then we actually had to stay in Bali for probably another week to 10 days after Tony had passed because of the repatriation process. So we had to actually do a whole embalmment, get paperwork to release us. Not only had Tony passed away, we were also battling with all those, not earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, which were also happening in the island. And whilst that was not near us, they weren't flying. So, whatever could go wrong did go wrong. So, it's surreal that even happened. And I'm a very detailed person. I guess it's from my careers that I've had in the past, but I just used to write everything down. I had this booklet, and it was just very much a process of what I had to do next. Fortunately, we did have travel insurance, and the repatriation was covered with that. But then you're liaising between the insurers, the Australian consulate, the police, so all these different parties. And again, my husband passed in a hotel. We were at the Hard Rock Hotel in Kuta, and the assistance that we were provided on that night was absolutely horrific, like nothing. And it wasn't until the next day when I spoke with the general manager, who happened to be a Kiwi, and I said to him, look, this is what's happened. It's absolutely disgusting. And they couldn't do enough for me. So they gave me their head of security that helped me navigate through going through the morgues, the police station. And then they also gave me an interpreter as well. So whilst it was helpful, it was almost, you don't know who you trust, and when you're in those types of environments and heightened with everything else that's going on, I just remember feeling so overwhelmed because I just didn't know who was telling the truth. the police were trying to suggest that it had been foul play, and I'm like, no, he had a heart attack, like, so you just was questioned continuously. So anyway, we got out of Bali eventually, got home, and then the arguments with the Queensland coroner began. Because they wouldn't release the body, because of he had been embalmed, they weren't satisfied that he hadn't had an autopsy, all these different types of things. So I think reflecting now, it was probably nearly a month before we actually could do Tony's funeral service, which was ludicrous.
That is such a crazy experience at a time that you're dealing with a huge grief experience. And you're facing this mountain of administrative work, and caring for your children, who are obviously with you in Bali for those 10 days.
Yeah, exactly.
So obviously life was hectic, and that's a unique experience. Did you reach a point where you were forced or you were able to finally just stop, slow down, and I guess start processing what had actually happened?
No, look, not really. The kids and I, we were living on an acreage property in Brisbane, and we had 4 acres. We had the horses, the chickens, the dogs, the cats, we had everything. The kids and I, we've always been a very tight family, and bearing in mind at that time, my daughter was 15, my next son was 12 and 9. 15, 10 and 9, 8. But anyway, but basically really young, still kids. And basically we made a decision on the aeroplane coming back from Bali. I said to the kids, okay, we've got 2 options. Either we keep running with this momentum and make sudden changes, so then our life is going to be different on the other side, or we can stay at the acreage, we can make the house feel safer, we can do all these things. But we all knew that me being a single mum with 3 children is actually going to impact, I couldn't sustain a property and everything else by myself. So it was pretty much a united decision that we would actually just keep running and do whatever it takes to get out of that environment. So I guess, we did the whole funeral thing, and then we decided to put the house on the market, so I had to do maintenance on that. We decided to stage the property, so I got a professional person and designer to come in and stage the property. And the children and I had actually bought another house back in the suburbs. So we were fortunate that we could, between Tony's death in September and to January the following year, I had sold 3 properties, 2 investments in our main home, and then actually purchased a new property to start our life again. So, and that's just a whole other equation and another conversation, which is, I guess, the driver as to how I launched my business. But yeah, so for us, kept going. And I think once I did all of that, it was probably in March. That's when I hit the skids and ended up having a couple of nights in hospital. And I just remember lying there going, oh my God, I can't keep doing this. So, and that was quite life-changing at that point when I had to phone my daughter and say, hey, look, honey, I'm in hospital, don't be alarmed. But yeah, I didn't get a lot of the family support either that I thought I might have got. But that's okay now. I've just had to park that and just keep moving forward.
Well, it sounds like you and the 3 kids are an incredible team. It sounds like you really pulled them into the decision-making process and tackled it all together, which is wonderful. By incorporating them into that decision, as you said, you kind of sat down on the plane on the way back from Bali. How do you think that helped them in their grief and helping them accept the new life that was sort of coming for them?
Yeah, look, I guess at the end of the day, there's no right or wrong way as to when you move forward. We wanted to less complicate ourselves, and I was very, very conscious that there were so many memories in that family home, but it was also equally not exciting, but it was the unknown of actually going to the next chapter of our lives. Tony will always be a part of our lives, but he's just obviously not there every day. So for us, it was very much creating new memories. So I created excitement around it, and I very much got the children involved, and we would sit there and go, okay, what does our next house look like? You know, we sort of created a list of the nice to haves versus the necessities. We looked at locations. It became very much a family situation whereby even when we were doing the open homes, all of us knew exactly what we wanted in the house. So my daughter and I would often be in the car, the boys would be running inside doing a quick reconnaissance of the house, and then they'd come back and go, no, Mum, you won't like it, and we'd go on to the next one. So, you know, we all knew, we all got on the same page, and they all knew what was important to them. And then, you know, as part of the process of getting out of our old house, I actually sold just about every bit of furniture, apart from keeping some of the keepsakes. You know, obviously there was a lot of mementos, but it was important for the children to focus on their new bedrooms, their new home, their new house. You know, friends, what friends are going to be around, that they could walk to school, like all these different things. So we looked through heaps of houses, but the one that we ended up with, we all got to the front door and we were like, this is the one. So that was pretty cool because we'd set the criteria, we'd made it, we made it exciting, we made it a good process. Yeah, so, but I totally respect that that's not easy for some people to make that transition, and that's quite okay. I guess your children and you have to have that form of grief, and actually you'll know when the time is right. For me, being on an acreage, slightly out of town, and having to drive the children everywhere was not going to be an option as a single mother. So it was like, simplify, what does that look like?
Okay, so moving house is one thing, and that's a big step, but it's all the contents of the house as well. What did you have trouble letting go of all Tony's personal belongings? And that's a huge milestone in itself. Was that hard to leave things behind?
It was. The children and I again got very involved in it as a united front. So even with Tony's clothes, I would put everything out on the bed and I'd say what was important to you. Like, so look, we've got probably about 3 or 4 boxes of things that are still important to us and resonated with who he was. He was in the army for a brief time as well, so we've got all his military stuff and, you know, all his awards and accolades and things like that. So those are really strong memories and possessions. For me, furniture wasn't. You know, so for me, it was it was actually exciting again to actually restart and do things differently with the children. So everything I did involved the kids. So again, that comes back to actually engaging them, setting a purpose, having really clear, defined lines as to, you know, where we're headed and what we're wanting to do, what we're wanting to achieve.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions of people who are having trouble letting go of their belongings? I know for me, I struggled to let go of my husband's clothes. We didn't have children, but I had a closet full of his clothes that I just couldn't let go of. So eventually I came up with the idea of making a quilt for myself and also for his nephews, using some of his favourite clothes and things that were in photographs. And then all of his business clothes, which he had heaps of, suits and shirts and ties.
Yeah.
Found a local charity that helps people who've faced joblessness or homelessness re-enter the workforce, and donated a lot of his business clothes to that charity, thinking there was going to be a lot of meaning in that. Have you had clients who have struggled with that hurdle and have any ideas for people who are really maybe a little bit sentimental and letting go of stuff?
Yeah, look, I think it's funny, I sort of did similar things to you. I gave a lot of things to charity. At the end of the day, I think I look back and I sort of suggest to my clients, put them into different piles, you know, put them into, and just start and sit there and live with it for a little bit, or put them into a few different boxes, you know, and that's part of the cleansing process and letting go. I think the hardest things for me was aftershave, of which my boys now have in their bedrooms, toothbrush, pillows. Like I was reading posts the other day, you know, like you don't want to change your sheets, like that sort of stuff. But taking that element away, I think it's really good to like have maybe piles or different boxes whereby you can start putting things into. These are definitely keepers. These are things that, you know, maybe I'd like to have, or the kids might have, or whatever. And as time goes by, I think it's a process of elimination. Because your mind's so cluttered with so many other things that you have to do. So often it's good just to park that to the side and come back to that. Like those possessions aren't necessarily the key driver between you, and sometimes it can block your vision moving forward. You know, and then you've got to factor in your new home, are you going to have the ability to store all these possessions? Like, what's the actual purpose and driver behind those possessions? Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's just one way of looking at it.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. I know I didn't have room in my new home to store things, but my parents did in their spare garage. So I actually shipped things to their house just so it was there until I felt definitely ready to.
Yeah, and you know, I'm up to year 3. I feel like I've been grieving so much more in the last 6 to 8 months than I have 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But, you know, it's just one of those things. It's just part of that process.
Any idea why that's the case? Do you think anything's happened in that last period of time?
Look, I think there's been a lot of firsts with like my children particularly. I get high school, my daughter's doing her grade 12 formal, like, you know, she came into me the other day absolutely heartbroken, like it was about 11 o'clock at night, bawling her eyes out, and I was like, what's up? And she's like, oh my God, I just miss Dad so much, I just want to have a conversation with him. And then you're like, oh my goodness, you know, and I'm like, what's triggered this? And she's going, nothing, I've just realized that I'm never going to speak to him again, you know. It's all these little things. So it's very much around the kids. It's I took myself to Italy last year for about 6 weeks holiday, and just me and a couple of girlfriends, and so much guilt around that, because where's my husband? Where's Tony? Like, you know, like that was again, but I had to do that to again reset myself. And you've got to, you know, not have that guilt, because that's not what he would have wanted me to do. He would have wanted me to live my life. So for me now, possessions aren't everything. Yes, it's lovely to have a beautiful home and have somewhere safe where we can all come together. But to me, adventures and new experiences, spending time with my loved ones, suppresses everything else. Yeah. And I feel blessed at 45 that I've been able to work that out, and that the kids at their young age, they're working that out too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different perspective, isn't it? You really see what's important.
Totally. Yeah.
Did you have to deal with opinions or disapproval from people in your life who had their own ideas about how you should be managing your grief, whether that's family or friends, or people who wanted to weigh in and thought you were, you know, moving too fast, or you should be doing this or you should be doing that? Did you have support from family and friends? Or
look, I say this very much tongue-in-cheek, I was very surprised about the people that step up and the people that don't. I think people that know me, I'm a very sociable person. I can be quite, I know what I like and what I don't like, and I'm not scared to sort of say, it was interesting, people just sort of watched me go, you know, and I think everyone was ready for me to sort of crumble at some point. But I think because I had the business head, I knew how to connect with people. I don't know everything, but I certainly know the right people to ask. So look, yeah, I think I had structured my financial affairs and everything. I've been working with a financial planner for a very long time. I had an accountant, I had a lawyer through different things that we had done as a couple. So again, it was very easy for me just to go, okay, who do I need to engage with this? And often you would start a process and and then you'd have to engage with another party. And that's where it's really important for people that are wanting to make that change and transition, that they need to work out who's in their court, who they need to support them in that process, and not be afraid. Like, you know, I've very much, I guess, increased my knowledge bank of different things as well. And it was more for me so I could feel like I was in control, and you know, not feel blindsided or pushed in one direction through other people's opinions.
Yeah, that's great. And so life obviously looks very different now to how it did 3 years ago. And we know that grief is something that we carry forward with us for the rest of our lives. Do you ever have any moments where you regret having moved home, or you wish you could go back in order to feel closer to the life you had with Tony, or anything you do differently now? Or
I don't think so. I mean, you've got to remember that we were together 23 years. So that was a long time. I was 19 when we got together. So I feel like we achieved a lot as a couple. And we drive past our old house all the time, and I feel nothing. I feel like we've made the right decision to be where we are. It's funny. It's probably more the photos and memories, and you know, the thing that frustrates me and I regret most of all is not videoing him and listening to his voice, because like static photos are great, but it doesn't show their quirks, their voices, their hand gestures. And the biggest thing I've learned too, you've got to take more photos of you as a whole family and not just Tony and the kids, or do you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, like it's discovering all those things, and you think, oh God, I should have done that, you know? Yeah. And I think the first year you're pining through everything, you're going through everything that you can find just to hear that voice. And that's when the tears start and the floodgates open.
yeah, almost to make new memories, isn't it? To have new experiences with them in different ways.
And that's the thing, you know, it's very much a focus of creating new memories. We still go to the cemetery. We decided to put Tony in a really beautiful cemetery, and it overlooks the water and so forth. And that's something that the kids and I do probably every 2 to 3 months. We'll just go and sit there and tell them about our day or whatever we're doing. And then every year on his sort of birthday, Father's Day, all came around the same point. We go down to Shorncliffe Pier and we throw off some roses at the sunset, and you know, like, so we've actually created really beautiful memories to honour him, and actually that is always there in our minds as well.
Those rituals are really important.
I think so, yeah. And it could be something little, you know. We used to have State of Origin hot dog night, so you know, they continue.
Yeah.
Just little things. And that's where you engage with the kids, even when you're moving house and, you know, and sorting out those possessions. It's not necessarily possessions, in my opinion. I think it's, we sat down and we wrote like a scrapbook of Dad's favourite flowers, tastes, music, you know, as much as we could remember about his childhood. And I engaged with his parents and we got some more information about his childhood, because for me it was so important to capture that. So then when the children ask me, when they've got their kids, I can tell them, oh, your dad used to do that. So sometimes, you know, like I said earlier, it's not about the physical, it's about what's in here and what, you know, what you can take moving forward.
Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. Yeah, your story is really, really moving, and you're obviously a great mum and with some beautiful kids who've really been on your team, and it's really nice to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Joanna. And thank you everyone at home for joining us. We really appreciate you tuning in. For more of our Widow Talk videos, you can check out our YouTube channel or our website, www.firstlight.org.au. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.